Okay, welcome back. This is APCS, Project 2, benchmark number 1. This is actually due this evening, Wednesday, October 14th. However, I'm going to go ahead and record this and then I'll post it tomorrow. Students need help for doing this project. I'm doing this in Eclipse because it'll be a little bit faster for me. And notice I've already created a class called Student List Runner, or Stud List Runner. And that's all there is in here, except I can go back to the Lab 14 that we did some time ago, back on September 17th. And I'm going to go ahead and take this code and we're going to start with that. So this was doing the menu, and if I come back in here I can go to just paste that in and I can save it, I can format it so it's all nice and neat, and this is going to actually create a student list object, and this is underlined in red because that doesn't exist yet, and none of these methods exist yet. But notice right here I've got this guy called menu number. That's going to display a menu and then get user input and choose the right number to go wherever in the program the user decides. So to go there, I'm going to go back to my Lab 14. I'm going to grab that menu, or that method rather, and I want you guys to notice that right here, I know this code, menu number, has to be a method inside this class because there's no object in front of it here. And so I'm going to come down here inside my class. This is the end of the class right here, so I'll just go ahead and say end class. But outside of the main menu, so this is the main main method. So this is main. I'm going to come right in between those two guys. I'm going to paste this in, and now I've got this guy menu number. One of the nice things about Eclipse is that it'll just import all this stuff for me. So it's going to import my scanner just by right-clicking on that. And also, notice I don't have a student list, but if I hover over it, it says, do you want to create student lists? So I'll say, yeah, I'll create that. It'll put it in the same folder, and there's my student list. If I control space, it'll put the constructor in for me, and that guy is almost ready to go. So notice that over here, even though now I do have a student list number, I've got most of these things. What I don't have is I don't have this method. So I've got a student list class, but I don't have this method in there. So when I create a student list object, if I want to get to this method has to exist in the student list class. And so one of the nice things Eclipse will do is it'll just make that method for me just by right-clicking on it. And so there's that method. Now there's nothing in here right now, so let's go ahead and give it something. Let's go ahead and say system.out.println. And let's just give it a message that we know we're in the right place. So I'm going to say inside, and I'll just take this method name and it'll say inside there. The other thing I want to do here is I want to put a scanner, and I'll say scanner, or actually, sorry, I'm going to make this a string called wait, and scr dot, let's do next line, and it'll just wait there until I hit the return character. Now this guy, scanner, doesn't exist here, so I can just put the scanner up in top, and I can say scanner scr is equal to new scanner, well, with my system in, and that guy's good to go. Just hover over this guy and say import it, and it will import it for me. Okay, now I want to go back to my other methods over here that don't exist. Actually, I think I'll make all these methods first. So get student info, I think we renamed this actually. I should do this all at once. Let's go ahead and call this add student. And then we had, we're going to need some more methods here. So we have add student to list. And we have delete student from list. So let's take this and we'll put it right here, and I'll just change this to delete. And what else do we have? We have search. So delete student from list would make more sense. Down here I'm going to go ahead and call this search student list. So right here, this will say search student list. And I need several other methods, and that's the difference between one of the differences between Project 1 and Project 2. And since I need several more, I think I'll just take these guys and come to here, copy it, and paste in here. And so I need, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll need 5, 6, and 7. And this one's going to say else do this. So if control does not equal 7 now, I need to continue on in the loop. Now let's just change the name of these. Add student to list, delete student from list, search student list. Instead of end program here, I'm going to do a clear. So I'll say clear student list. And I've got a, what else? Print student list, that's going to be down here. It seems like I'm missing one. Print student list. Seems like I'm missing one. Add, delete, search, clear, edit. So edit student list. Okay, so those are the methods I'm going to have, and that should be reflected down here as well. So down here, I'll just simply add those guys to make sure I'm doing those things. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then finally 8 to end program. Is that right? Let's see. 7 is going to end the program, so I don't need this guy. Okay, good. So let's make sure these guys, add a student, delete a student. What else? Delete, search, clear, edit. So I'll say search the list. Clear. Edit. And print. So that's going to be here. Print the list. And then finally end the program. So this will be number 7, end program. Okay, so now user's going to input, nothing else has to change there, so that's good. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now these guys don't exist. Actually, I put this guy in prematurely, so we'll go ahead and leave it there for a moment. I just hovered over this guy, it says create that, and this is what I wanted. I wanted this guy called add student to list, so I'll simply paste that in here, and I'm going to get rid of this guy altogether. Now I can do that for each of these. I'm going to come in and I'm going to hover over this and it'll say create the method. And I'll come back and I'll create this method. Okay, rather than have you guys watch me do the same tedious stuff over and over, I just did it while the the camera was off. But in any case, here we go. We've got all of these methods. I've got add student to list, delete student from list, and so forth. And each one I have the appropriate print statement, and then I wait until the user hits the any key on the keyboard, and it'll just wait there. It'll print inside delete student, inside search, inside clear, inside edit, and so forth, all the way down. And the only one I don't have over here is the end program, because that, just like this guy, is going to come down here. So I can just hover over this guy and say create that, and so it'll create it right there. And the only thing I want to do here is print that. So instead of saying system.out.println, and it'll just say program ended. So let me just say program terminated or program ended. Okay, and I noticed that, let's see here, I've got some capitals. Let's just put in caps so we're consistent. And end program. Okay, so now we're ready to go back, and this guy is done. One of the things I don't have is I don't have a student object. And so if I'm going to make a student list, I want to instantiate a list. So what do I want to make a list or an array of? I'm going to make an array of student objects. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say student array, and this is going to be called students. Now notice that I am in the student list class, and so I can stop that, and inside the constructor I'm going to say students is equal to new student array. So I use student, and let's go ahead and start it off with 10, and the semicolon. Now that's pretty good, except again I don't have this guy here called student. So here I'm just going to say create that class, and I'll say finish, and right away now I have my student list runner class, I have my student list class, I have my student class, and if I come down here and simply say control space, it puts in a default constructor, and that guy is ready to have my methods created. So I'm going to make some instance variables here. I'll say private string, and I'll call this guy L name, actually F name for first name, and I'll just leave it like that. And I need to have several of these guys, so I'll come in and I'll say F name, M name, and L name for first, middle, and last. And then I need a couple of other guys. I need a double for GPA, so I'll just say double and call this guy GPA. And this guy's going to be an int for student number, or studnum for short, and that's pretty good. Now notice these guys have little yellow lines, and Eclipse is going to say, hey, one way to help out here is that I can create getters and setters for you. So I'm going to right click on that, say OK, and it actually made my get F name. I think I'll change that to a capital F, and I'll change that to a capital F. So it made my getter and my setter for me. Notice the get has nothing coming in, but it returns this guy F name, which is a string. The same thing down here for set. I take in a string, doesn't return anything, but I'm going to take my local variable, my instance variable F name, and I'm going to load it with whatever comes in here. And I can do that for each of these guys. If I right click on this, it says create getters and setters, and I think I'll call this get middle name and set middle name, and I'll say OK. And the same thing for this guy, create getter and setter, and I'll do the same thing here. I'll do a capital L, so we'll make it camel case, and we'll do capital L here, and get and set L name. So those guys are all created for me, and last two are GPA, so I will say create that guy. Okay, that looks good. And I'm going to create the getters and setters for this guy. Okay, that looks good. So all of that is done, and now all I have to do is initialize these in the constructor. So again, I have my instance variables. Let's go ahead and say that, instance variables. And down here I have my constructor where I'm going to initialize those values, or set it to default values. So instance variables, constructor. And down here I'm going to have my getters and setters. And so that's good to go. All I need to do now is give these guys values. So for instance, I can say set F name, and I'll just set this guy with an empty string. And so that's going to call this guy called set F name. It's going to load an empty string in here. So when I first create this, the constructor will be called, and I will set these values accordingly. So I can do that for first name, I can do that for middle name, and I can do that for last name. Okay? Likewise, I can do the same thing for my GPA. And so I'll say set GPA. GPA wants a double. So I'll just go ahead, instead of a string here, I'm going to say 0.0, and I'm going to say set studnum, and I'm just going to set that guy to 0, and that looks good. GPA doesn't look right, so let's see what's going on. Okay, so I have this guy set GPA. I have lowercase p and a, so let's change that. And so that is project 1. Again, I've got my student list runner. I got all the code here. I had to adapt it slightly from Lab 14 just by adding some more methods. I've got my student list, and so all of those methods according to what's inside the student list runner. And in my student, I've got all of my fields set up. I initialize those in the constructor, and I have all of my getters and setters. There's actually one other getter that I need to put down here, and I'm going to say public string, and it's going to get full name. And I'm going to need this later on, but when I do this, all I want to do is when I say get full name, I need to add a return statement, and so this is going to say return, and it's going to say F name plus, let's put a little space in here, and plus, should be a plus, not an equals here, sorry. So I've got F name plus M name, a little space in here, plus, and this is going to be L name. And that's it. So that's going to return this nice string, which will have first, middle, and last. And I'm good to go. That's it for tonight. Bye-bye.